Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord is out in full on Disney Plus, 10 episodes, around 22 minutes each. This is a new animated show set in the Star Wars universe, done in the ever-evolving style established by Clone Wars. It follows, of course, Darth Maul, and if you're a casual fan, you might be shocked to find that this isn't a prequel, because isn't Darth Maul the silent assassin who died shortly after being introduced in Phantom Menace? Well, the short answer is yes. The long answer is that the death was retconned because people were sort of interested in who this guy was. He became kind of a silent fan favorite. So he was brought back in Clone Wars. He was shown to survive being cut in half because his hate was so strong that it kept him alive. He went mad for a while, he was healed, he had mechanical spider legs, then mechanical claw legs, then normal mechanical legs. He led a criminal syndicate out of Mandalore and was beaten by Darth Sidious himself, leading to an escape. Later on, we found him in another animated show, Rebels. Bear with me, there's a lot of Star Wars lore here. He was sort of a mad hermit, still fueled by his hate towards Obi-Wan Kenobi, and finally he ended up on Tatooine, tracking down Obi-Wan, having another short duel against him, which ended his life again permanently this time. And by the way, this particular sequence remains one of the best scenes in all of Star Wars, in my opinion. Now, you might ask yourself, was all this necessary? Probably not. He was, Maul was made into a somewhat interesting character in the end, but I would say that his story was already stretched out, which begs the question, why do we need another show about him? This is set about a year after his flight from Mandalore. He now only has a small group of loyal Mandalorians around him. He comes to a planet called Janix and begins interacting with the local underworld to try and rebuild his criminal empire. He comes under the attention of a local policeman named Lawson, and things are further complicated by the fact that two Jedi, Master Daki and his Padawan Devon, are on the run in the same city, leading to all these characters inevitably crossing paths. So again, even though I have become somewhat fond of Maul through all the media he appeared in, I do think a strong argument can be made about why are we still following the same character in yet another show? I, for once, long for original stories in Star Wars, and especially new time periods. So conceptually speaking, this was always somewhat lacking for me right from the get-go. It does have some interesting elements. I think Lawson is fascinating in how he attempts to keep the Empire not involved in the matters of his city, which initially seems like he's just being arrogant and thinking he can solve the case himself. But later on, you learn that no, he's actually very shrewd, and he realizes that the Empire getting involved can be worse than even the criminals. And also there's that subplot of his wife, his estranged wife, be working for the Empire, which brings another sort of dimension to all of this. And this all, again, is played against his kind of procedure-based partner, Two Boots, the droid, and sort of we also explore his shock at realizing how bad the Empire's involvement becomes. I also liked the two new Jedi, although at this point, the number of Purge survivors is coming close to 100, I think. I like the dynamic of a master who is old and realizes it. He knows he's becoming sort of a burden and perhaps a dead weight, but he also still desperately wants to protect, to ensure security for his Padawan, even more than physically, to ensure that she remains a good person in the face of overwhelming adversity. And for Devon, that conflict becomes, well, the old Jedi the old ways of the Jedi are clearly not working, and in this brutal world that is chasing me for who I am, and that I now have to inhabit, there is no space for mercy, which would of course be a solid reason for her to sort of fall in with Maul and follow his temptations. Frankly, I think the most boring character in the show is Maul himself, because at this point we sort of know where he came from, we know his past, we know how he ends up, and this feels like a somewhat repetitive chapter in his life. I do think the show is stretched a bit thin. At 10 episodes it feels overlong, and I think it could have fit into 6 episodes rather easily. I think the action is generally okay. The lightsaber stuff is brilliant, but the shooting stuff not so much. There are multiple shootouts in the show which are just kind of average. However, the two final episodes are phenomenal in that regard, and it was really cool, especially to see a certain someone show up again towards the end. I loved the Spybot character. I thought he was really fun, new droid, and the animation is incredible. Particularly the hand-drawn backgrounds, which are just jaw-dropping at times. And then the detail, the texture on Maul's skin, the shadows and colorful lights, even things like lightsabers steaming after passing through a waterfall. Visually, there is no doubt that this team has been pushing the envelope further and further since they began on Clone Wars, and it's always a joy to watch their work. So yeah, for me, it's an okay, decent show, but nothing spectacular. In fact, I think it is okay in spite of itself, because I think conceptually it feels a bit tired and boring, but manages to find some cool aspects to play with.